Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest has too many credits to get through in one intro. Of course, you'll remember him as Vern, one of the four core kids in 1986's Stand By Me. And if you're a fan of daytime television, you can currently catch him as one of the hosts of The Talk, as well as hosting the game show Pictionary. But he's had quite an extensive career in horror, which we are here to talk with him about today, starting with playing Sidney Prescott's college boyfriend with a knack for singing in Scream 2, and starring in many other horror films throughout the years, like Room 6, Piranha 3D, Satanic Panic, and most recently, 2022's Play Dead. We are so excited to welcome to the podcast the multi-talented Jerry O'Connell.
Hey, you know what? First time, long time, guys. Excited to be here. But, Stand By Me is kind of a horror movie also, I mean...
You're totally right.
It's a Stephen King.
Yes, The Body.
Movie.
You know what? The funny thing is, Jerry, is like we could have talked to you the whole time about Stand By Me, but I know you've talked about it so much that we're like...
Hey, no, you can ask me anything you want about Stand By Me. As, a 50-year-old guy, I realized, that's the one everyone wants to talk about, no offense to my other projects, but I think the real miraculous thing and why I'm so willing to talk about it all the time is that we made that film 38 years ago and it's still, people are still talking about it. Not only talking about it frequently.
Yeah.
They have not been able to recreate that movie.
It's true. And, we do have a few questions about that. And we were going to kind of start with that before we went on to the other horror hits. But
Make it all about Stand By Me. I don't care.
Are you kidding? Look at my
fellas,
look at my
today
t-shirt.
Is your day.
Jerry,
is your day.
I have a Scream 2 t-shirt on it. And today.
There we go.
And you're on the t-shirt.
Unlike that fucking movie poster where they took me off of it and put Liev Schreiber on it. That was a little annoying. If you notice, there's two Scream 2 posters. The original was with me. But I don't know if because Liev is just more recognizable or his character, I believe, does go on to Scream 3.
Yes, he does.
Get killed.
Wait, but Jerry, do you want to see
I think
something?
on the DVD, this is what it is. On the DVD, they put Liev. On the movie poster, I'm on it.
Do you want to see something even cooler? My boyfriend for my last birthday got me, because he knows how much I love Scream 2 and he knew we were doing this interview. He got me the letters that Derek gives to Sydney in Scream 2, the Omega Kappa Beta letters.
That's hilarious.
Because,
that's really funny.
Yeah, so we're big fans of that. But anyway, so starting with actually... Before Stand By Me, what was life like for you growing up in New York City? Did you always want to be an actor?
I grew up in Chelsea, New York. For those who don't know, it's like a very artsy area of New York. On the weekends, I was in a place called HB Studios. It was like a teenage acting class. And this was like a down and dirty West Village acting school. And it was with older kids. I was like 10 or 11 and they were all like 14, 15, 16. And I was good. It was something I was really good at. It's funny. I remember we were doing like improv one day and the improv was our teacher would yell out like a location and boom, everybody on stage had to start improving. And I remember, man, I was probably 11 at this time. The teacher said, you're on the ledge of a building. And I started improving about how no one could kick the pigeons, leave the pigeons alone. And I was very upset about the pigeons and it killed. And it killed in a room with like 16 and 17-year-olds, kids who smoked, kids who were having sex, kids who wore leather, kids who had beards. And I remember afterwards, everyone was outside smoking ciggies after class. And they were congratulating me. And they were like, "That dude, that was really funny." Like adults were saying that to me. And I remember thinking like, all right, this is me. This is where I belong. These are my people. And I just took that into Stand By Me. I just happened to get in there, But listen, Chelsea was a great place to grow up. It was just a very artistic place. Halloween, it's very, I don't know if it is anymore. I think I'm not sure if it's like it seems to be pretty gentrified now, but it was a very like gay, fun, hip. My parents were real bohemians. There was no delineation of like family restaurants or gay clubs. It was like everything. I went to Floron. If you don't know what that is, it's an iconic diner in the meat packing district. It's closed since, but like it's almost like a drag diner. It was.
Awesome.
I grew up in a very. I grew up with a very rich, cultural, hip upbringing. So I was worldly.
Did your parents expose you to like horror films? Did any make an impact on you?
What was my experience with horror films? I guess my first real experience with horror films was going to see Creepshow in the theater.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, we love that one.
And being blown away by it. Seeing it on a Friday night. I guess rentals, horror movie rentals. I remember when we did Stand By Me, all the boys, we all rented Friday the 13th, and I'd never seen it, and I was really into that.
Tim's
Really scary
favorite.
I love Friday 13th.
Tim's favorite.
Did Corey Feldman give you any stories about the final chapter?
We did. We rented it like back to back to back. I don't remember any tidbits. I remember being really starstruck that he was in it, and I was like, I can't believe I'm working with a guy who was in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and we're contemporaries.
And Gremlins.
Yeah.
I mean, funny thing is when Corey Feldman was in Stand By Me, that he had been in Friday the 13th. He was like already a horror star, which is so funny to say,
Yeah, no, Goonies, all of it. He was a real star. All the other boys had a significant amount of experience. I had none, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but they were very helpful. They were very, it was a great place to learn,
Do you have any like dominant memories sticking out about working with director Rob Reiner? Because I know, especially it being your first movie and him being the director, like if anything stands out from that experience.
I'll tell you, like looking back now, coming up on 40 years later, he rehearsed with us a lot. Every scene was rehearsed. He massaged it. He worked with it. And I think that comes from him being a sitcom actor before he became a movie director. And in sitcom acting, you rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then you tape on Friday. So you literally have 4 days of rehearsal, and then you put the show on. So I think his process was, we're going to rehearse, we're going to rehearse, we're going to rehearse. We're going to go to the actual locations. We're going to block these scenes out. And then when we come in, that's when we're going to have fun when we're filming. And that's where we could let loose, So it was... my first job, Stand By Me, was one that was heavily rehearsed. These days, they don't really rehearse, fellas. It's just not, there's no time. It's not part of the budget. It's not part of the economics of making a movie. If you get a big star, let's say, for example, Thanksgiving is coming out as we record this, okay? And Patrick Dempsey, I believe, is the star of that.
The sexiest man alive.
The sexiest man alive, according to
alive.
Also a Scream alum.
Also a Scream alum.
Yeah, exactly.
Also a Sidney Prescott love interest.
Yes, exactly.
We're related in that way.
What do they call it? Kissing cousins? No,
anyway. I think they call them. It might be something offensive. I was about
something
to say
very offensive. But
yes,
go on.
Uses a group of people. Siblings. But when Patrick Dempsey does Thanksgiving, he's a big star. Eli Roth probably gets him right before they shoot. He does a wardrobe fitting, and then they're on set. And then when they're on set, Eli Roth says, "Okay, let's block this out. Let's see what we're doing." Man, Rob Reiner, because we were kids, he just got a lot of rehearsal time with us, and I really attribute that to how smooth that movie is. How well we knew each other. When we got to set, we weren't figuring things out. We had done it a bunch of times before that. I know that's like I know that's not a sexy story. This is that there was more rehearsal, but I'm sure a lot of your listeners are involved in the horror process. And I'm just saying, like, writing scripts, doing readings of them, having actors put it on its feet when you're not even on set. It's super important.
Oh, I am an over preparer. I mean, even for our interviews, like we really do a lot of research and try to write down the questions. Like, so any type of preparation, I totally get that type of thing. I guess then the overall question that I'd want to ask you about Stand By Me, because you mentioned it at the beginning, is why do you think that after so many years, it still resonates so much with people back then and today.
I think coming of age stories are really impactful because I think they survive generationally. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
I mean, today it is.
They survive generationally. I watched Stand By Me as a kid. My wife watched Stand By Me as a kid, and it was a big deal for us to show our teenage daughters Stand By Me. It's a coming of age generational rite of passage. It's a and it's not a chicken shit coming of age film.
No,
There's curse words.
I will never forget the first time my entire family all sat down to watch it, and when the Barfarama theme came on, I'll never forget it.
And another thing that I really like about it, watching it as an adult, is that back then, like when I was a kid, I don't know, I always felt like as a guy, like guy friendships, like it was always weird, like you couldn't be too emotionally close. And I like that a movie back then showed these like male friendships, and they're, heterosexual friendships, but like emotionally, they're very like they cry with each other, they share so much, and it's almost like it's okay to be a kid and a guy and to be emotional. And I thought almost that was in a way that was ahead of its time,
Also, this is a horror podcast. If there is a formula in Hollywood, Stephen King short stories make good movies. Yeah. Full stop. Period. Stephen King short stories make good movies.
Big Stephen King long stories, dude.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the track record of his short stories make for good movies. And there's no scientific economic answer to that. The way that man writes makes for a good 90-minute movie.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh. It took me years. I recently read his book on writing. It's a great read, everybody. You should really read it. It's really, to me, what was fascinating is how Stephen King became Stephen King. What his creative process is, how he came up with Carrie. It was a life experience, and it's really kind of motivated me to, we live in an age where we're all Zooming with each other and doing this interview, but it really made me get out of my house and do things and say yes to things and try to experience everything and not look at my phone all the time and really experience other people and, not talk to strangers, but like, stranger danger, everybody, but like, be open to the universe, I mean, even for example, we have a mutual friend who I greatly respect, who said, you got to do this guy's podcast. And my immediate answer is, yeah, sure. Of course. It's a great read on writing. I think that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and we're so grateful, especially. And also it's nice when people connect people and people want to help other people. I just think it's like the nicest thing. And, we, even being podcasters, we exist in an age where there is a million podcasts out there, a million horror podcasts out there, but we love cheering for others to succeed because one person's success doesn't mean the other person can't succeed too. And just helping people out, it's just I feel really grateful. We have a lot of supportive people in our lives that are willing to connect us with people like you. And, there's great people like you that are willing to take the time to do this. So this is just a big love fest, everyone. But we do want to move on because we want to get through all of your horror movies. But one thing I did want to ask you before we move into Scream 2 is that I read this random fact that I don't know if it's true, that could have been a weird connection between you and Neve Campbell before Scream 2. So tell me if this is true. Is it true that you landed the role of Bailey on Party of Five right around the same time that you got your role on Sliders?
They were both Fox shows, and it's really funny. After Stand By Me came out, I didn't really work that much professionally. I did a Scholastic series based on like kids' books, and I did an after-school special, but I didn't really like. It's crazy. You would have thought after Stand By Me, I would have that would have been it. Like it would have been like Olsen Twins, here we come. I'm designing fashion now. But my parents were not in the industry, it just didn't happen. But that said, I went to New York University. I stayed in New York. I lived at home during college. I went to film school. film school was so much fun. You know, you walk into film school and your first it's called language of film. Your first film theory class is the professor doesn't even say anything. He just turns the lights on and puts on Rear Window.
Yeah.
And then you spend 4 classes analyzing Rear Window, and like you realize, wow, it's not just a good movie. You realize like, oh, every time the bad guy Patton, what's his name, George C. Scott, I think it is. He plays the bad guy in Rear Window. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I know it's a horror podcast. There's like a siren in the background. Like you just learn like film theory, and it was just so much fun. That said, I started auditioning for commercials a lot when I was in college, and found great success in commercials, and didn't really get into scripted stuff. You know, the difference being like commercial work is like commercials, and scripted is like, you know, TV shows and movies and stuff. And then my agent was like, I think you should go up for pilot season, like, which is like, I think like you were in Stand By Me. You have a pedigree. Like, you're a good actor. You're booking commercials. You're making money. And I had money, you know, and I was in college and had money, you know, I was paying my tuition and I had money, you know, I was really doing well. One of the jobs I auditioned for was Party of Five. And one of the jobs I auditioned for was Sliders. Fox was making a big push in scripted development at the time. And I really wanted to be in Party of Five just because it was younger, and it was like younger and hot people. And they were going to go with someone. They may have gone with someone. I apologize if I'm talking ill about someone, but they went with someone. And then in Sliders, which was another sci-fi show I did, which had horror elements to it, and they let that person go. And at the last minute, they put me on Sliders. And that was it. I never heard from Party of Five again. So yeah, that was there was that connection. But you know, we were also young actors in Hollywood. You know, I mean, so I saw these people at auditions. You know, I knew who Neve Campbell was. I didn't know her that well personally, but I went to college with Skeet Ulrich. I knew him well. I guess I met Matthew Lillard after I was in Scream 2. He came to the premiere of Scream, and you know, I had seen all these people at auditions. You know, I worked out at the same gym as Jamie Kennedy. Like, it was Hollywood in the 90s, young Hollywood in the 90s. It was fun, you know. I knew Sarah Michelle Gellar. I knew Rebecca Gayheart. I met Portia de Rossi on Scream. I knew Dwayne Martin from college. Like, I knew these people.
Yeah, I guess the reason I brought up that random connection, because if you happen to play Neve Campbell's brother in Party of Five, I'm sure they never would have cast you in Scream 2 as her love interest. You know what I mean? So it's like, how crazy would, you know, the whole world would have changed. Anyway, but
I know.
Yeah, moving on to Scream 2.
It would have been weird. It would have been weird for people to see siblings like making out with each other.
Oh, of course. Like everything
would have
changed.
freaked people out. You
exactly.
know?
But okay, so what was the audition process like for the role of Derek in Scream 2? Because it sounds like, especially after the success of Scream, like every, you know, young hot star wanted to be in the Scream sequel. So what did you have to do in the audition for that role?
You know, I had to meet Julie Plec, who I'm sure you know, who's a great writer, who was working with Wes Craven at the time, God rest his soul. And Wes's producing partner, Marianne Magdalena, and all of our producers. It was a real old school. By the way, they don't really do this anymore because everything's done over Zoom and like what they call self-tapes. So you take your phone and you read sides, and then they're casting these things on phones now, you know? I mean, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the technology, you know? I mean, we do everything else on our phones, so why shouldn't we audition on our phones now, you know? But back in the day, you had to walk into a room and meet people and read sides. And I just, you know, I had really been pretty seasoned at that point. I had auditioned for thousands of commercials, tens of thousands of commercials. I had auditioned for, you know, scripted series and stuff, and I was ready. I was not intimidated meeting Wes Craven. You know, I went in, and it's funny, early on in my career, I auditioned for a TV show when I first started getting into scripted stuff. I was still in college at the time. And I had a terrible reading. I got very nervous. I started shaking. I mean, listen, it's intense. I was 20 and there's a room of 10 people and they're staring at you. And I had like a panic attack, you know? And then I remember my agent called me up and was like, "Did you have a panic attack in there? They said you were shaking and like not good, and it's embarrassing, you know." And I swore I would never get like nervous at an audition again. It like held me back, like those nerves. Of course, like we all have nerves going into things, but I would never. I would just be fucking loose going into places. And Wes had such a great sense of humor, you know. He had such a good sense of humor. I was very loose, and I can't speak for him, but I think he liked it. And we were a loose cast, you know. And it was interesting because I sort of had to play the boyfriend, so my role was a little straight, but it was a loose, fun cast. We had a really fun time. You know, Kevin Williamson wrote the script. I thought the original Scream changed the game, you know? I mean, I thought it was like different than anything I had seen. And they really went for it. You know, spoiler alert, when those two killers at the end are doing their thing and toying with Sydney, we had never seen that in a horror movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's disturbing.
You know, you were speaking, we actually were lucky enough to have Kevin Williamson on the podcast, and we talked to him about Scream 2 was known for its many script leaks, and but we found out that a ton of those dummy scripts were purposely meant to mislead people about the killer's identity. So I'm wondering, do you ever remember getting a script that had you as the killer?
I never got, they probably didn't trust me. I never got the last like 15 pages of the script. I only had scripts that were missing the last 15 pages. It wasn't until we shot the last 15 minutes of the movie that I got that scene. I remember when we went to the location, it was a theater in downtown Los Angeles. That's the first time I read the final scene.
Well, so at that time, Mickey and Mrs. Loomis were the killers, the actual killers. It wasn't like there was any. So meaning all these dummy scripts, I feel like were just put out there to mislead people. It's not like there was ever a time when you thought you were the killer.
You know, maybe they told other people the ending. No, they never told me.
Wow.
They never told me. I had no clue, you know? I mean, I would imagine if Neve Campbell said who did it at the end, Kevin Williamson would have whispered it to her, you know? I mean... But with me, they never told me, you know, but I never asked. But, you know,
did Wes?
I figured I was on a need to know basis.
Well, I'm also thinking being the boyfriend and knowing that the killer in the last movie was the boyfriend. Did Wes have you purposely play certain scenes suspiciously just to kind of confuse people?
Wes was so funny. Wes was so cool. Like, I remember we were shooting one scene and it was night and it was on the college campus. And he said, it was either at the beginning or the end of a scene. He said, "Hey, Jerry, just look around." And I did. And then when I saw the film, I looked so suspicious. You know what I'm saying? It's just, he was so cool. He was so mild-mannered. He was such a great filmmaker. He was a real auteur. He was a real old school filmmaker. You know, I watch a tremendous amount of horror films. Just watched that one on Shudder. Hot damn, the Argentinian one.
Oh, is that When Evil Lurks?
When We Leave, When Evil Lurks.
Yes,
what
yes.
the fuck?
Oh my God,
man! My wife and I watched Speak No Evil. Yo.
Yeah, there are some really great, amazing horror films coming out all the time,
Speak
which
No
we love.
Evil. Talk to me.
Yes.
Come on now. These are such good movies.
Nightmares.
But nightmares.
Yeah,
I let you in. Talk to me. By the way, I really I was gonna look for those who haven't seen Talk to Me. It's based around this like sort of mummified hand. I did an internet search for buying one of those in our house, and I was about to hit buy, but I was like, I can't fucking bring that thing into my house.
I've seen that they do sell those.
You know, I watch these horror movies, and they're really like, they're incredible and effective and really fun. But you know, Wes Craven, it was almost like. It was it was an old school way of doing horror films mixed with a little new school, but it was like, they just don't make these cinematic movies. You know what I'm saying? It was a different era for horror movies.
So moving on in Scream 2, we were wondering about your big singing scene of I Think I Love You. Were you surprised that a scene like this was in the script, or did you feel like it was kind of like a nice break from all the suspenseful scenes?
You know, it's so funny. I get a little it's a little scary for me to talk about it because I can't tell you the amount of online hatred I get for that scene.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. Like, it actually is like I can't tell you how many people on Twitter, right? Like, that scene really ruined that movie for me. And it bums me out, guys. It really bums me out. I don't know what to say. I apologize if it took people out of Scream. I apologize if it was different than what Scream was about. I think that's kind of what they were going for, you know? I apologize if I was bad. I'm not a professional singer. I've never claimed to be.
You don't need to apologize.
no.
Here's
I
the
think
thing,
that's
like,
what they were.
as Scream fans, I think, and you know, it's different, but like it was needed to build the relationship between Derek and Sydney. It was kind of like a break from all of the chase and attack scenes. You know, I'm surprised that people say it ruined the movie for them. That's crazy.
You know, I used to have a joke where I would like retweet it and write like, hey, sorry about that, everybody. My bad. We'll try better next time. But I've just like stopped. It's funny. It just really rubbed people the wrong way. You know, doing it, I just went for it. You know, it was funny. I was around David Arquette, who was going for everything in scenes. Jamie Kennedy, who was going for everything in scenes. You know, Laurie Metcalf, who was going for everything in scenes. It was, I mean, I thought it was a lot of fun, but people were really upset about it.
If given the opportunity, would you sing it again today?
And do you still think you could sing it today?
What you can't see because this is a podcast, Jerry is smiling.
Yeah. Do you still think you could remember that song today?
Well, you know, it was originally supposed to be, it wasn't, I Think I Love You. The song was originally, and I memorized it, but they must have not gotten the rights to it. It was, it was originally another song that I'm forgetting that I memorized.
I
But
Will
yeah,
Always
I
Love
can sing
You
it.
by
I think
Whitney
I
Houston.
Love you, so what am I so afraid of? I'm afraid that I'm not sure of love there is no cure for.
Yeah.
I think I love you. Isn't that what life is made of? Though it worries me to say I've never felt this way.
I love it.
It was really fun. And I think, you know what? I would rehearse. It's so funny. I would rehearse by going to karaoke by myself. And I would sit there in the karaoke room and just sing it over and over again.
That is awesome. See, well, first off, thank you for singing that for us. But like,
so nice.
secondly, like, I think it's it's very unique as a scene. And even like, I don't know, for me, again, Scream 2 is my favorite in the series. And I'm not just BSing you. I have said this on our podcast many times. There's just so much to like about it. But it's like, it's crazy that people can be so like, you know, people on the internet can be harsh and stuff. So I'm sorry that you've had to face hate for a scene that like you were doing your job to do, and something that I think is a fun little break from all the action, you know?
Yeah, it really annoys people. It really does. It's so funny. I'm even scared talking about it with you. I just know people are going to be like, fuck you. I hate that scene.
You're
It
in a
ruins the
safe
movie for me.
place.
So I know, but I actually don't even talk about it. It's like one of those things. It's like I rarely talk about it. It really annoyed people.
Wow. Well, you know, then working obviously alongside Neve Campbell, who's become like one of horror's most popular final girls now, playing Sidney Prescott in 5 of the 6 Scream films. What was Neve like to work with at that time in her career?
Gorgeous, great, kind, giving, fun, awesome. Just great. So cute. Such a star. I had real, you know, I'm happily married now. I have a family and everything, but I had genuine emotions for her when we were shooting, you know, really. She was, really, everything, you know, just everything, just a real, just a timeless beauty, you know?
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on Neve opting out of Scream 6 after not being offered what she felt she deserved? I'm sure you heard all about that.
Yeah, I think Neve should get what Neve gets. I mean, this is like Neve gave birth to this franchise. Of course, I side with performers. Yeah, they should give Neve whatever Neve wants.
Yeah.
Give her all the money.
I mean, and also she is so much of the franchise. It's just crazy. You know, that it got to that point. It was crazy it got that point. And we're hoping that they'll get her back for a future one if they can finally pay her, you know, what she's asking for with that.
And have you, I mean, I'm being a horror fan, have you seen all the Screams following yours?
So rude, guys. I stopped at 3.
You stopped at 3?
Third one. I have not seen 4, 5, or 6.
There's still time, Jerry.
I would say, yeah, there's good parts about all of them.
I think I might check out 6, just because everyone has told me that 6 is really good. But I stopped at 3. Sorry, guys. Is that rude?
No. I mean, 4. I mean, I like them all, but 4 was kind of, Sydney was still the most important part, but it was kind of a new generation of people. And then 5, they started this new, they had Radio Silence working on it, but they got Neve and David and Gail back. And then 6 was New York, which was really, really fun, but that was the one Neve is not in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. I stopped at 3. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, our last question on Scream 2, did you get to meet at the time Laurie Metcalf, who ends up being my favorite ghost face of the entire series? Because I know she comes in after your death.
Yeah, no, of course I did. I worked with her a few days before because her character is established before. Man, real deal. What an honor getting to watch Laurie Metcalf just take the reins. That's a real actress right there, everybody. Like, just watching her go. It's funny. I've played a killer a few times since then, and I really attempt to basically just copy the gravitas that Laurie Metcalf had.
Amen. That she plays such an incredible killer. We just it's just a performance you never forget. It's just so unhinged and awesome. So we're big fans.
So after 9 years later, you starred in my favorite film, Room 6, with Christine Taylor and many other horror stars, Kane Hodder, Ellie Cornell from Halloween 4, and then Chloe Grace from the new Carrie. What was your experience like being offered the role in Room 6? I love it.
You're joking, right?
No, I really the irony is I'm addicted to Tubi, and I love Christine Taylor. I came across this film. I thought it was so much fun to see you and Kane Hodder and Ellie Cornell. I was into it.
I love that you said that, Jerry, by the way. But it's a different sort of film, and you wear zombie makeup for half of it. But what was your experience like on that film?
It was just made by real old school, low budge horror movie people, real Roger Corman-esque horror movie. And Christine Taylor was going to do it. And I just said, yeah, let's do it. But I wouldn't say it's my best reviewed work.
So what was it like fighting with Jason?
Yeah, you have a fight scene with Kane Hodder, who is basically royalty in the Friday the 13th series. He's played Jason 4 times, and you got to have a fight scene with him. What was it like filming that scene in Room 6?
It was a real honor. It was, you're a part of actual horror history. And he's a pretty ripped dude. He's jacked, he's jacked. It was kind of scary also at the same time. He's Jason.
Yeah. Did you know at the time that he had, I guess you did because he had been in all the movies, that he was Jason Voorhees from so many films?
Of course. I think that was part of the casting of him, that was part of the casting. Yeah. It was a real honor. I've now worked with Jason Voorhees. I've also on an episode of Sliders worked with Robert Englund. Who's left? I guess Michael Myers.
You need to work with James Jude Courtney next. Well, so moving on to 2010, you starred in the 3D remake of 1978's Piranha called Piranha 3D and played another Derek, but this time your character was based on the creator of Girls Gone Wild. And we just want to know, what was it like playing kind of a sleazier type of character for this film? Because it looked like a lot of fun.
It was so fun. Those guys, Alexandra Aja and Greg Lavaseur, are such auteurs. They're such good filmmakers. They, before we started working, and by the way, getting back to rehearsals, we did get a little rehearsal time on that. But these French dudes, before we started working, were we want to, and I apologize to French people for this accent, we want to capture the gluttony of Spike with Americans and the gluttonous sexual explosion that happens during spring break, and how this is just their sex, and we're going to really dive deep into this. And it really, I just felt like I was making high art with those dudes, you know? And I really, again, learning what I learned from David Arquette, from, you know, seeing Liev Schreiber, from Laurie Metcalf. I just went for it. And it was one of those roles where I got to go for it. But it's funny, working on Piranha for me was a little bit of a change, because I suddenly became the older guy on set. And it's funny, on Scream 2, I was the kid, you know, and Liev was the older guy and David Arquette was the older guy. And, you know, here I had these kids sort of like watching me sort of set the tone for scenes, you know, and it's funny. I was just positioned to have a really fun time on that Piranha movie, because I experienced, and I wanted to share it.
How about the bright red Speedo that you're rocking in this movie? Was that your choice, or was that the director's choice?
You know, that was my choice, but the director was all for it. I mean, Alexandre Aja, cannot wait. I've loved everything he's done. I love everything whatever he's about to do. And he has a producing partner named Gregory Lavasseur. And I just knew I had to go for it. You know, they had a great wardrobe designer, a costume designer on that. And just fucking go for it, you know? I mean, if there's any theme to this interview, is that Laurie Metcalf goes for it, Liev goes for it, David Arquette goes for it, you know? Just go for it. It's so much fun. One of my favorite films last year was Barbarian. And I'm so proud of Justin Long. The dude just went for it.
It becomes memorable.
Film, you know?
Yeah. Well, and you're so memorable in Piranha 3D, and you also have this really memorable, brutal death scene. And I wanted to ask you, because I know you guys were dealing with like CGI fish. How did they film your death scene? Like, what were you reacting to underwater? How did that whole thing come together?
You know, a lot of it is just reacting to nothing that's there, but it's really fun because you get to see what they're going to do down the road. You know, I mean, you get to be surprised when when you're at the premiere. But I really trusted Alexandre Aja and Gregory Lavasseur. I knew for Piranha, the big thing was making sure the CGI looked good. And I do have to say, what was really cool about them is that, like true horror people, you guys mentioned Room 6 earlier. Shout out to Room 6, my Room 6 people. There's something about practical special effects. And when I say practical, I'm sure everyone listening knows what I'm talking about. But in case my parents are listening, that's where they actually put like practical makeup, where they use physical makeup, not CGI. And Gregory Lavasseur and Alexandre Aja were intent on making sure that I had practical, you know, my legs get, spoiler alert, my legs get bitten off and my penis gets bitten off. And they wanted, that was an actual like suit that I wear. And it was a whole rig where they hide my legs and they put fake legs on me, and they put an area where my penis has been eaten. Spoiler alert. That was a practical effect, and it's such a fun reveal, you know? So like, you know, shitty horror movies just rely on CGI all the time because it is cheaper, you know, and by the way, they you know, this stuff is done overseas, so it's even cheaper, you know, and like they just, you know, say throw in an explosion here, and it's not the same as actually wearing like an outfit where your penis has been eaten off.
You know, it's funny. I thought that was all CGI. It's crazy that so you were in like a suit that had like a fake eaten off bottom half of your body.
Full on.
Wow.
None of it is CGI. And also I like really trusted them so much. Oh God, I have to be careful. I'm like standing outside of a church. I'm not even kidding.
Really talking about getting your penis eaten off.
So sorry, everybody. But for that role, they asked me, would you be willing, would you be willing to lose your penis? And I said, yeah, let's do it. Take it off.
I love that. Would you be willing? Now, is that a question you've ever been asked again in your life?
No, it was really funny. I remember when they were doing it, I was like, hey, guys, do me right when you have this penis floating to the bottom of Lake Havasu. Like, come on, do not do me wrong. And like Alexander Usher was like, well, you are swimming and you are nervous, so maybe it is not so big, because it is retracted because you are fighting for your life. I don't know when he turned into Schwarzenegger. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, French
you're
people.
like, I don't care, 8 inches or I'm out of the movie. Well, moving on to another movie that had quite the amount of gore that you got to star in with your real life wife, Rebecca Romaine, Satanic Panic from 2019. Now, you're only in one scene, but it's a very memorable and gory scene because first off, you accidentally shoot yourself, then you're spitting up blood, and then Rebecca literally rips the soul out of your body. So what was it like working with all that blood and gore and having your real life wife rip your soul out of your body?
Super fun working with my wife because I know I can do things where my wife will be less likely to go to human resources. Like I can really go for it with her, But again, I only got one scene, but it doesn't matter. Like, what are you going to make of that scene? I mean, like, what are you going to do? Going on with our theme, you got to go for it. This is a genre where you've got to go for it. It's so much fun to just.
Would you ever do another horror film with your wife?
Oh my God! In a second, all we do is watch horror films. All those aforementioned films I talked about. Talk to Me, Speak No Evil. What was the Argentinian one that was on Shudder?
When Evil Lurks.
This is my wife and I watching all these. We saw Barbarian in the theater twice. Like our children are on a steady diet of Hereditary. We are. This is our genre. This is it. And we love going to the theater. There's just something about, man. There was something about seeing Barbarian in the theater. Oh God, I have a guy that I work with too, who I only refer to him as Mama from Barbarian. It's just me just going Mama with him all the time. I know it's not like appropriate for the workplace, but I'm always like trying to get him to I breastfeed him at work, and I go Mama.
That's hilarious.
Is it Bill, the warm-up guy from The Talk?
No, that is my buddy though.
Well, and then in 2022, you played the coroner in Play Dead. And this was a very different type of character because it's very kind of like you give this very chilling, almost like Patrick Bateman, American Psycho type of performance. I was wondering, was that character your inspiration for that film, or was there something else that inspired?
No, I just it's funny. The guy who directed it was the guy who edited Scream 2, believe it or not. So he's and I love working with editors because they have a different eye with directing. It's so interesting to work with directors who are editors because they really give you directions for what is needed for a performance. It's so educational, and I knew I was in super safe hands with him because he's obviously he comes from the Wes Craven horror tree. They had that script. I met with him and I said, this is what I do with it. I mean, I know I said, you got to go for it and all this stuff, but I just felt like it was fun to go sort of chilling with that one. By the way, in the streaming world, that is on Tubi currently. And it does really well on Tubi. I keep getting updates on that movie. It's just shout out to Bailey Madsen. So sorry, Bailey Madsen. Who is the star of that? I think her popularity in the Gossip Girl reboot has really helped us as well.
It's a very great. You give a great performance in it. It's just chilling. It's just different from a lot of the characters you've played, and you also have this intense fight with Bailey at the end. Do you enjoy doing like fight scenes like that, or is that all choreographed when you're doing a fight?
Yeah, I like fight scenes. To be honest, I like acting the best. Fight scenes are fun and I love helping out with them and doing them and stuff. But to me, acting, like really like having huge chunks of dialogue, monologues, you know, like that stuff. That to me is really where the fun and horror happens, you know.
Yeah.
You know, telling Clarice about the lambs. Do you hear the lambs crying? You know, that sort of stuff is that's the real good horror stuff to me. You know, one of the best scenes I think in that Barbarian movie is it's one shot. Justin Long goes out drinking with his buddies, and then he comes home and leaves a message on the woman's voicemail that is accusing him of harassment in the workplace. And such a powerful scene. You know, those, like the fight scenes, everything has to come to a climax and all that stuff. But for me, it's the acting stuff that's the most interesting.
The meaty stuff. And I think some of the best horror movies take the time to develop the characters and give them enough dialogue rather than just, you know, slice and dice, I guess, over and over.
I mean, listen, you know, when you go into something like Piranha or, you know, Play Dead, or if you're going to be the killer in Scream 2, you look at a story and you say, what's this person's point of view? You know, I mean, justify it. You're the one who's playing that role. You have to, what's the justification? You know, if you almost justify it, makes it way more compelling. Portray the other side of these horror villains.
Yeah. Well, Jerry, before we wrap up, we wanted to play just a quick little game with you where we ask you some rapid fire questions. And all you got to do is answer with the name of one of these horror movies you've been in. It's not trivia. Don't worry. It's just kind of asking your opinion. So you just have to answer with either Scream 2, Room 6, Piranha 3D, Satanic Panic, or Play Dead. Okay?
Are you ready?
So the first of the questions is, which of these films have you seen the most times throughout your life?
Piranha 3D.
What do you think is the best overall horror film?
Of those.
Guys, so rude. I think Piranha 3D.
Wow. Okay. Which of those, of the movies you were on, had the most drama on set while filming?
I wouldn't say drama, but Scream 2 was the most fun I've ever had on set anywhere. You know, it's funny. I moved to Los Angeles. All you want to do is get invited to Hollywood parties. All you want to do is be in with the in crowd. And when I was on the set of Scream 2 and I'm looking at Neve Campbell, Timothy Oliphant, Jamie Kennedy, Courtney Cox, Liev Schreiber, David Arquette, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Portia de Rossi, Rebecca Gayheart, Omar Epps,
Jada Pinkett Smith.
Pinkett Smith. I was like, I'm here. That's it. Where do I go from here? So definitely, I wouldn't say drama, and everyone rallied around Wes. No one gave Wes a hard time. Everyone rallied around him. I would say the most fun drama was Scream 2.
Which had the most behind the scene romances?
Scream 2.
I'm thinking. I've heard lots of different things. Which has the most cast members you're still in touch with today? It's got to be Room 6, right?
I do stay in touch with Christine Stiller for sure. Love her. Christine loves reality television. So do I. So does my wife. Oh, you know what? Piranha 3D. I stay in touch with Adam Scott, and I stay in touch with Paul Scheer, and I stay in touch with Elizabeth Shue. You know what? I had lunch with Steve McQueen too. It's Steve McQueen's grandson, who was later in Vampire Diaries. So I'd say the cast of Piranha 3.
Which has the scariest villain?
It's got to be Play Dead, right? Because you were the villain.
Or the Piranhas?
I'd say Timothy Oliphant. Laurie Metcalf really did a great job. I'd say Timothy Oliphant and Laurie Metcalf.
In Scream 2.
Seen Scream 4, 5, or 6.
Oh, I mean, you're breaking our hearts as Scream fans, but I'm hoping after this interview, if there's one thing you do, it's rent Scream 4, 5, and 6 back to back with Rebecca. Can you promise us that?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Which of those horror movies that you're in did you show your daughters first, since they're teenagers now?
I would say Scream 2 gets a lot of play with their friends still to this day. My daughters who are 14, their friends see me in a different light. They don't see me as a parent when they see that film.
Which of those horror movies are you asked the most about by your fans?
I would say Scream 2. Sometimes people will come up to me and say, like, Sydney should have believed you. but I've never taken part in a horror convention. I know some people are doing them, but I've never taken part in one. I don't know. I haven't been invited yet.
I can honestly tell you, since we talked to a lot of people who are in these conventions, you would have an incredibly long line with the amount of horror big movies you've done. I mean, and horror fans are loyal and lovely people.
Listen, I would go as a fan. I mean, are you crazy? Like, I wouldn't go to sign pictures. I'd go to get Robert Englund's autograph.
Yeah, and I know that you are probably incredibly busy now hosting The Talk and Pictionary, but do you see yourself doing any more horror films in the future?
Guys, I'm not really doing that much. I'm like standing in a park here on a Saturday with terrible Wi-Fi. Sorry, guys. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. You know, I would love to. It's my favorite. It's the only genre I really go see. You know, I don't go see like 3.5-hour movies about important social issues that we're supposed to see. I don't go see movies about the atomic bomb. I don't care, man. I don't have 4 hours for that. You know what I'm saying? Give me 90 minutes to get the shit scared out of me. I did sometimes I mess up. I took my kids to see Infinity Pool, and that was not something to take like a group of 13-year-olds to. It was a little adult content.
That was
Wow.
Yeah, that movie is a lot, I'd say. Yeah.
I felt really bad too because my kids were 13 and I took some of their friends and I said, we're going to go see a horror movie, and it was A24, and I love A24 movies, and there's some graphic stuff sexually in there, and like I had to call the parents and say, I'm so sorry I took your kids to this movie. I took my kids to Terrifier 2. That was a lot of fun. You know, I'm a fan of the genre. And yeah, of course, I hope to work in it more, you know?
Well, we have one final question for you, Jerry. And thank you for, I know that the Wi-Fi has been a little tough, but like, thank you for taking the time with us to talk about all these movies and everything. We have one final question that we ask. So the final question is, what is one thing you can tell us about your experience working on any of those horror movies that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, or podcaster? It doesn't have to be some big juicy thing, but it can be anything, but that you've never told anyone about working on one of those horror movies. And, you know, maybe Scream 2 if you can, but just something that you've never told any other podcast or interviewer about your experience working on one of those films.
You know, I sort of mentioned it earlier. I never really talked about what a crush I had on Neve Campbell when we were working on that. I never really talked about that, but I really did. It didn't really go farther than, sorry to say. But yeah, I had a lot of emotions for her when we were doing Scream 2.
I heard that she was dating Matthew Lillard at the time. Is that true, or do you remember that?
It just didn't happen for me at that time. I don't know exactly her situation.
That was 26 years ago. So, I mean, I can't remember what I did a week ago.
Well, look, Jerry, we've had a blast talking with you today and really, really do appreciate you taking the extra time. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Definitely.
See you guys.
Okay, bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Tim Murdoch and myself, Matt Emmert. It's produced by Jacob Randall.
You can listen to the podcast directly on our website, happyhorrortime.com, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you stream podcasts.
We release new episodes every Monday. The first Monday of the month is always an interview with a horror star, and every other week we review a new horror film. Now, our reviews do contain spoilers, but you can check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X social pages the Friday before release day to find out the movie we'll be discussing.
If you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our monthly bonus episodes, all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the ability to vote in our polls, and, Tim, are you ready for this?
Autographed Happy Horror Time stickers. I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.